We've done many self-development challenges lately, and sure, doing 1,000 burpees or confronting your own mortality might be tough, but have you ever tried accepting yourself unconditionally? Joking aside, self-acceptance is something that a lot of people struggle with. And as one of our experiments, for 7 days in a row, we spent some time doing self-acceptance exercises every day. We wanted to find out if this would make a noticeable difference and if it's one of those things that actually helps us live a better life. I'll show you some of the specific exercises we did and some of the results we got, but first, why self-acceptance? If you want to live the best life possible, there are two ways in which self-acceptance is an important factor. The first is that, well, the opposite of self-acceptance for most of us is some form of self-loathing, and that might show up as, negative self-talk or putting lots of pressure on yourself or just generally always feeling like you're not enough. And needless to say, if nothing else, this by itself just makes your life worse. It's just not very enjoyable to walk around with a constant negative self-monologue going on in your head. So even if that was all it does, if you can kind of eliminate that self-loathing aspect, and if you can start respecting yourself the same way you respect other people, that would already increase your life quality. But there's a second aspect to this as well, which is that a lack of self-acceptance is a form of resistance. It's a form of tension. It essentially takes some of your energy to maintain that. And for many areas in life, if you want to unleash your full potential and if you want to be at your best, this extra tension is actually a hindrance. Ambitious people and people who are interested in self-development often struggle with self-acceptance.
I felt for a while that if I would accept myself, this would mean that I would stagnate because, now you accept yourself, you can basically do whatever, which is kind of a flawed argument because only because you accept yourself doesn't mean that you can't see things in yourself that you still want to improve and that you can improve.
That's most of us, isn't it? We feel that somehow if we simply accepted ourselves exactly as we are, then that would mean we no longer want to improve, and somehow that would get in the way of our more ambitious plans. Basically, we have a theory that goes, it is because I'm dissatisfied with myself, it's because I'm not good enough that I want to get better. And I don't want to stop getting better, so I have to keep being dissatisfied with myself. Before I go deeper into this, let me just refer you to the podcast episode we recorded that is all about why self-acceptance and ambition and growth are not mutually exclusive. So go check that out. For this video, let me tell you more about how we did self-acceptance exercises and what results we got. In general, there are three kind of categories of self-acceptance work that we did. One is contemplation, number two is writing exercises, and number three, conversation. Here is one of the self-acceptance exercises we did, and you can try this out for yourself. I call this the self-acceptance escalation. This is something you can do as a contemplative exercise or in writing. Start with a simple statement that you think out loud to yourself, I accept myself. And then look for resistance. If you say to yourself, I accept myself, is there a part of your mind, is there a voice in your head that goes, no, not really, or you don't deserve to be accepted, or something like that? And then you can start escalating these statements. So you can then go to, I accept myself just the way I am. And again, see if there's resistance. And you can further escalate this. Maybe you want to say something like, I love and accept myself just the way I am. And we can further escalate, and maybe we can go to, I love and accept myself just the way I am right now. The principle here is always, you want to make the statement stronger and you want to see if there's resistance within you. And that resistance is the interesting part. When you feel that resistance, that is what you can then work with.
As soon as we added the now element, in other words, do I accept myself right now? That's where I started feeling resistance. And the first thing that came up was physical appearance, like body, weight, loss, that kind of thing that I want to do, work on, and then more started to unfold from that.
The resistance that I had was when we did the exercise that said, I love and accept myself exactly as I am right now. And when I said that one, it was all these old insecurities kind of came up, like in the past where I didn't necessarily like the way that I looked, or I was insecure about, my face and asymmetries and stuff like that. And that was resistance that came up that was interesting for me to see. And I was like, okay, now I can deal with this, because clearly this is not like a prerequisite for me accepting myself. So I can work through this.
And how do you work with it? Well, let's look at a second exercise that we did. You can look for a story and examine that story. So you want to begin with something that you dislike about yourself, something that you struggle to accept. So in the first exercise, maybe there's something that comes up that says, no, I can't fully love and accept myself the way I am because I haven't been successful enough. Or first I have to lose some weight or something, right? You have some thing that you resist. And then you can ask yourself, okay, what is the story that I tell myself about this? And write it out in great detail. Because initially you just get a suggestion that says, I can't accept myself because, and then you really start writing that out in detail. What story comes up? Then the next step is to start examining this story. So you can ask yourself, is this really true? Is the story I'm telling myself here about why I can't accept myself, is that true? And do I really believe this? Because sometimes you'll find that it's an old story that maybe you picked up as a child, but you don't actually believe it anymore. And you can ask yourself, well, what else could be true? Even if there is some truth in this story, is there a different story that could also be true? So if the story is something like, I can't accept myself because I haven't been successful enough yet in my life, maybe that's true. Maybe that's a true story. Sounds true enough. Maybe another story that could also be true is that acceptance and love for a human being is not all about success and performance. Maybe that's also true.
Thinking through it, and like all the prompts helped me along the way, but it was really this one thing that I was working with, which was just like another way to understand that I don't have to be perfect, and that I can like love myself because of my flaws, not despite of them.
What I recommend here is gentle questioning. You don't have to like completely turn this story upside down. Just gently prod at it and ask yourself if maybe there is something that you could change about this. You're not going to change your mind from one moment to the next in most cases, but you can shift your perspective just a little bit. And that's what this exercise can do. Here's a third example of an exercise that we did. I call this the friend perspective. So you can think of, again, start with a story of something you struggle with, something you don't want to or feel like you can't accept yourself for. Maybe even a story in your past or a specific problem you're struggling with right now. And then imagine that a friend of yours comes up to you with exactly this problem, with exactly this struggle. And then ask yourself, if this is a friend coming to me, do I judge that friend the same way I judge myself? So if I'm having a problem, I say, oh, I'm such a loser, I'm such a failure, I'm the worst. If a friend comes to me with the same problem, do I tell them the same? Or do I have a different perspective all of a sudden? And also, do I have advice for this friend? This is an exercise that we did in writing. And here you can imagine one of your actual friends, but it might also help you to almost like take an outside perspective on yourself, or almost have a hypothetical friend, so that you don't get caught up on details of that person or your relationship with that person. You just think of like a hypothetical friend, someone you love and care about. They come to you with this problem. How is your outside, your friend perspective on this problem?
With this, I recognize that I seem to have a different rule for me than for everyone else. When it comes to other people, I'm like, yeah, you've got your imperfections, you're human, etc. But for me, I seem to apply a different rule. It seems that the attitude I take towards myself is that that's just not okay. It's like, if it's not perfect, then it's just not okay. And it's a very specific failure of you. And I'd never take that line with anyone else.
All of these exercises can help you gain some clarity on how you treat yourself and whether you have a nurturing relationship with yourself or not. And they can help you kind of rewrite the script if you tend to be very negative and very hard on yourself. It can start shifting that perspective.
The biggest insight for me is a sense of, hey, you're doing okay. Going from not accepting myself or struggling with those resistance points, by the end of this I felt, no, I'm in a good place with myself, and that's great. But I do need to continue doing this because I think I can take it a lot further.
My background, reasoning, all the elements, all the choices that I made have led me to where I am right now, and that's okay. I've come to terms with being a project in progress.
I would say the insight that I gained is that although I have things that I don't necessarily 100% like about myself, I can still love and accept myself despite those things.
I noticed that there was a bit of an acceptance for things that previously I would have found like just not okay. And I had a conversation with one of the guys and I was saying, I don't think I'm a leader at the moment. And this is like for an aspiring alpha male, this is sacrilege, blasphemy. You can't possibly say you're not a leader or an alpha or want to be one of those things. But it's just like, I sat there and I was like, right now in my life, I am not that guy. And there was no resistance to it. There was no like, oh, I'm terrible, I need to be this guy. And what's the plan for becoming that guy? It's like, no, there was none of that. It was just like, right now, I'm not that guy. And if in the future, I'm in a situation where leadership is demanded of me, then I can become that guy then. But I'm not going to force myself into that position now. That was probably the biggest takeaway.
As you can see, this was a worthwhile exercise for us to do, and I would say that this 7-day experiment was definitely a success. And I recommend that you try this as well. Although, let me also add to this. Doing self-acceptance exercises for 7 days in a row can already lead to some changes and some results, as you saw. However, I would really think of this only as a beginning. This is something that runs deep, and you can't expect to fix this problem within 7 days, but it is a good place to start. So just because we did a 7-day experiment for this video doesn't mean that our self-acceptance work stops here, and it also doesn't mean that it should stop for you after 7 days. My recommendation is that you give this a try, and if you feel like you benefit from it, keep doing it. Keep examining this using writing, contemplation, and conversation, and see where it leads you. This was one of our kind of softest experiments that we did. So if you're looking for something more action-packed and you want to see other self-development experiments, be sure to check out the playlist and subscribe for more videos to come.